Okay, there we go. So this is hopefully recording now. You will also be able to see that a transcript is happening at the bottom of your screen. If anyone doesn't want that on their screen, if anyone finds it distracting rather than helpful, you can turn it off at the bottom of the screen. There's a way to, you can, if you click on where it says more, you can disable the transcript, disable the captions, or you can, you might just be able to see a button at the bottom of your screen that says disable transcript or stop captions. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's really nice to obviously see the faces of our poets and also to hear from people who are attending this from all over the place in the chat. Florida, Albuquerque, Denver, Spain, we're here in the UK, Scotland. So it's really wonderful to have so many people here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rona Cran. I'm one of the co-founders of the Network for New York School Studies, and I'm here with Yasmine, Shamma, who is my fellow co-founder and who's co-hosting this event with me today. So this is the Network's inaugural event, the first of many events, we hope. And our aim as Network founders is to bring people with shared interests in and enthusiasms for poetry together across borders and across disciplines, in places and in spaces both physical and virtual. And we're motivated by poetry and by friendship, by poems old and loved, poems new, yet poems as yet undiscovered, maybe even poems not yet written. And that same kind of tenet applies to friendship. We're here because of friendships established, friendships nascent, friendships that are yet to be. And as Gregory Corso put it, who I was teaching this week, he said, I love poetry because it makes me love and presents me life. So here's to poetry and here's to friendship. And before we begin, I just wanted to say a few very quick thank yous. Firstly, to the Arts and Humanities Research Council here in the UK, which has agreed to fund this network for the next 2 years. Secondly, to Yasmine, who is my co-host, the best co-host, co-founder, collaborator and comrade in poetry that anyone could wish for. Thirdly, to our newly appointed advisory board, a really wonderful group of scholars and poets who have agreed to kind of help us steer this project. So Maria Damon, Andrew Epstein, Mark Ford, Robert Hampson, Maggie Nelson, Daniel Kane, Marjorie Perloff, Libby Rifkin, Lytle Shaw and Jeff Ward. Thank you to all of them. Fourthly, thank you to everyone here tonight, to everyone who's been in touch with us to express enthusiasm for or excitement about the network. Please keep that coming. Please keep in particular letting us know how we can support you. And finally, thank you to our poets, to Anne, Maureen, Elinor, Alice and Patricia. It's wonderful to have you here. We really appreciate you sharing your work with us and taking the time to kind of help us launch this network today. So I'm going to hand over to Yasmine to introduce our poets. The evening's going to run, well, it's evening for us. I know that for lots of you it's lunchtime or maybe even earlier or later. But we're going to start with Anne. Each of our poets will read for around 15 minutes. And as I said, after everyone's read, we'll hopefully have time for some questions. If you have questions as we're going along, please just post them. Please use the Q&A function, which you can find at the bottom of the screen, rather than the chat. I guess let's keep the chat for chatting. And as I've said to people who've been in touch and who can't make it, the event is being recorded and we'll be able to put this online on our website in the next week or so, if anyone wants to revisit it. Okay, thank you everyone, and I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Rona. That was a lovely introduction. And just to echo all of her thank yous and right back to her. Our first poet is Anne Waldman, who, like many of our poets this evening / morning / afternoon, evades categorization. Some words that often are mentioned in the same breath as her name are New York School, beatnik, Buddhist, activist. And one of the most inspiring facets of her work to me is her activism and her notion that we must make the world safe for poetry. She has written over 40 books, including most recently Trickster Feminism and Marriage a Sentence, Fast Speaking Women. These are not in any specific order. They're just the ones that I picked out today. She has also had a career as an organizer and educator and publisher. She founded Angel Hair Press and was at one point the director of the Poetry Project at St. Mark's Place, also like many of our poets today. And in 1974 founded the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, which has left a lasting mark on and is now known as the Naropa Institute. She has been awarded many fellowships and grants, too many to enumerate, but they include grants from the Foundation for Contemporary Performance Arts, the Poetry Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, and she's held multiple residencies. She has lived in New Jersey, New York, and Boulder, and many other places, but currently flutters between Boulder and New York City. And I think it's from New York that she joins us here today. So I'll let her take it away.
Thank you so much. An honor to be here. I haven't spent much time in New Jersey, but maybe that's a good idea. Go to a monastery. Okay. I'd like to read first a piece called Practical Thunder. I'm dedicating it to Cedar Saigo. I remember phone calls to Diane after a breakup. She, like Joanne, would advise that you keep the domicile somehow. That was more important than heartbreak. A domicile was somehow tangible. Where will you work? Set up your shrine. Living is too expensive. It's not economical. Can't someone live in a closet, in a garage? Work it out, take turns. Don't be privileged about this nightmare of survival, not a wise ecology. But the pain, you'd say, stay friends, and there would be that lovers to brothers get out from under what burns you up about Kerouac School, your great vow. They say it's not a school without a building. An endowment can't just be disembodied, supposed to get straighter. Don't spend all the time resisting, but of course, all the time resist. Make shape of your own imagining for it, what you would like to envision in this temporary AZ. If you split with that, a school you make, think about it. They'd have to deal with the load you lifted, panic about the archive. Maybe someone would wake up, but maybe not. If you're so damn wide awake, no one will think they have to be, but still you see, you have to save it. Part of all that ecology, too scared to let go? I guess so. Yes, Diane, but I promised Robin Blazer, off in archive heaven, we'd be together. And Amity said, don't let them die. Don't forget Moonset, the path, Mulat, Bombsy, topsy-turvy, who's in, who's out. Her third eye, look of high concern out from inside, was checking you out, maybe feeling a pulse or sympathy, hand pulls some hair back out of your eyes. What you taught me, wipe your eyes, ease, and not worry, not be so uptight, let things unfold of their own volition. Don't push to study every which way of which of the magic arts. Take a symbol, stay with it, visualize it as it moves through. They'll come requesting you. The bodhisattvas, the perfect symbol for Anne, the perfect yidam, inner deity's secret. I know these things are symbols of themselves. Get out of New York more often, but don't you miss it. It's always with me. You don't want to. And what about Bobby Dylan? Well, you were lucky to have seen him play live those times. Whatever, the thunder, nice time, nothing to cling to. How can poets live that luxury? Why can't rock and roll do more for the cause? It's some kind of God realm thing. What kind of music is it anyway? I guess for the pleasure, God realm, Deva, Loka. Could you be jealous of the God realm? I'll never be able to define that soft indulgence. And Ginzi, he wasn't even there with you when you met Ali at the garden backstage. I did love the night with Muhammad Ali backstage at Madison Square Garden, having to deliver a spontaneous poem. And he said, so you're a poet, do you know it? Intersections for consociational map with his bodyguards in pastel, not more unlikely contenders. In the night, Dylan was purposely confusing William S. Burroughs with Tennessee Williams. And we were going to meet Raul Castro at a party. Where? And I say William, and he'd say Tennessee. I sometimes wanted to get to a monastery. You want to indulge, wait till the seat gets too hot and you crash. Get back on stage for idiot wind syndrome, like a rolling stone. Home is no direction, more like tambourine scatters. It's the sexy sub vocal of all the songs when you hear the man talking beyond himself, like Glenn Gould humming with Bach, the inner tune. And next, Let Go, Louis Warsh. I said we started it. We founded it then, Angel Hair, that very night. The Robert Duncan reading in Berkeley, 1965, the conference night we met. Robert Duncan commanded we make a magazine. You always said no later. It was a car ride. In a car we founded it. How do you found something in a car? It showed the temper of our various minds. Talking in a car is a magazine, I suppose. I wanted to be falling in love was also this idea. That night we were falling in love and we would be really good together, make something good. You never just fall in love with a person and make love with them. That we make something, that's the whole point, that we are inside poetry, and that Robert Duncan commanded this. I know he did, and he is a magus. Poetry was love for us. Poetry is mysterious. How could he not have cast that spell? You were conversant in the most exciting poetry, and the gossip about Jack Spicer hating the Beats. He wouldn't be part of the conference, and then he died, too young to think of a house. What think when they are falling in love? There is no future. We are right now. What I liked about being in this crowd of poetry, want to make something together, another reality now. There would be babies with others, and that's making time enough or no time for that. A magazine is a paper window, also a car window. Keep opening the curtains, and maybe you need a windshield wiper and music and someone else driving to make a magazine. A bedroom of strange bedfellows. We were the next night somewhere on Nob Hill, a fancy part of town. You were so kind and very beautiful, your slender, gentle body. I'd never been there, but you had a story with the people in the apartment, beautiful young men. It was a new tangle. I remember standing in front of a mirror on lysergic acid, going through all my lifetimes, and especially this one. I had a vision of all the persons I knew and how we had passed through sometimes, but it was important that we were all still together, changing how we looked, morphing, something radically changing us fast. But we were all feeling urgent about knowing something together and doing something. Why were we all looking up? My vision was look up, all of it, the people I loved. Francis. I needed an arrangement, an assignment. I needed Francis for them because of love. I thought, what an egomaniac. If I could just get one assignment from up there, I could take it on, or everyone could take them on for everything. They also wanted to make something together. That was what I was supposed to make. Maybe it would work for everyone, what to do, and watch my face age and turn to dust. Poof. And that was the point. Then I disappear. It was a wandering day. Did I have that idea about a magazine from the day before? I can't remember, but I wanted it to be around words. But I remembered struggling to get over the bridge to hear Allen Ginsberg read for the conference. It felt important. It was important. And we were stopping and sitting down and lost in the lines on our hands and street lamp light and undulation, lines of undulation. I felt very light and drawn to this fluid person next to me. We were going to be poets together and make something. That was a feminine plan, a path through parks and other places, a wandering line, a femme plan, manicured parts, but action in a garden and plants and trees, very luscious, soft. And when they were not, they were reminders of planet intensity, vibrating, striking out, pushing you away, then embrace very animate plants. We then erotic. If you sat with them, you were with them, thinking with them. I didn't know this city, San Francisco, at all, but it was many rays of light coming through a night and sitting by water. Where that could have been, where, like velvet, where was it? Sometimes a building, walking up hills, sometimes scent of jasmine, I am thinking, and we couldn't get over the bridge. And later I thought this was like karma, action. This was where you learn about action, whether or not you get across a bridge to hear Allen Ginsberg for the first time is action. And when you don't, because you think it is important and you think you missed it, then it is karma. It will come back to haunt you. Were you meant to fall in love, or a poetry reading? Fall in love? What could we do and did? What we couldn't do? How far we could go? Let go. And I wanted to do a little of from the large overstory, and so I don't have this typed out somewhere, but it's the John Cage, from the John Cage section, Pieces of an Hour. And Babylon, about being called to rouse for a performance, needs summoning from mental torpor, welcomes a structure which I create in this space of an hour, giving students an assignment to write every day within the same hour in the same spot. Someone never exits the laundry closet. And on about John Cage and his quintessential action and passivity, and paying homage in a kind of twilight meditation. Anyway, here's on 6 different days, right within the increments of an hour. That was the preparation. Dear John Cage, what? Time me, time. Individual who is effective, drama, but with a turn of gentry pretension, who is pattern in a great part, persist. Was ist los? Sacred gesture. What? In counting. 5 minutes, 33 seconds, patrician etiquette. Of their family, daily like is built, pieces of an hour, 1 the cause, 2 the ceremony, minute flicker, 3, you see the inside of her plan. On every hour, a minute is recorded to match her time. Prepare the piano, it is never wasted. Meet the man in Boulder, it is time. And Cage's laugh would wake the dead. Complex can be cursory, intricate palm leaf offering, but empirically it is signal, restless and where, dupe of leader, pieces of an hour in which a small bolt was living, suspended web of significance, demand, explication, undomesticated thought, put it in motion Tuesday, coherent cluster, endurance, incomplete, unfinished animals who complete themselves through culture, through highly particular forms of it. Javanese, Hopi, Italian, upper class, lower, middle. You are on the fringes too, and our plasticity has been remarked upon, but even more how dependent on a certain sort of learning. Whether stripping, rubbing, attainment of this concept, I tell you it is true. Specific systems of symbolic meaning. Beaver, build a dam. Bird, you build your nest today. Baboon, organized into social groups. Do this now. And mice, made on the basis of forms that rest on instructions coded in their genes. They can't wait to do this. And evoked by patterns of external stimuli. Physical keys inserted into organic locks, but women locate food, build dams, shelter, organize social groups, find sexual consorts. Second segment for preparation, a fine eye for deals and details. Wednesday. Quest, metaphysical piano, and I was a hidden treasure and I loved to be known. So I created the world. I was a word, then I had my treasure. Mind is outer space piano, continuous memory, penumbral light, oh Cage, inverts the piano. I fall away, please don't go. Yogin, sing out a gut to you, pieces of an hour. Spread out on a bed, take a shower to meet the main man. His day's a practice chart and you're a flow, powers of an hour. 9:10 p.m. he invites my voice in. Did you say it? What? It was a savant stream, it was unsteady. No, it was a crystal thing. It was a sure thing, and it was meeting you to do lunch. Do lunch if you could ever do anything. And better not focus on any government to be a damage all a place over itself. And it is about gaining, spending, a lost or principal speech. And what did you say? Who is a man not caged? Who is a woman not word? Who is a man not caged? Who is a woman not word? Dear John Cage, the world is a more humming place. We thank you for it. Maybe have time for one bit more. And this is from Gossamer, which is a story of rescuing archive. And it's a drama between the Deciders and Anne and original Anne and the simulacrum Anne that is created by the Deciders who are trying to get in the way of poetry, continuation of poetry. So let's see, just jump in here. The Decider stood hovering over me with menace, saying, I thank you for your passion, original Anne. He was making a list of all the deciding categories the original Anne would be excluded from. Original Anne looked deep into the eyes of this Decider, I would almost say lovingly, into the eye pools whose shapes within turned mosaic, congealed to bits of colored glass. She then saw within the finer particles more blocks of meaning form, and menacing form, relaxing, then realigning to shape and position to the posture of the troubling things of this world. A car with recliner, chauffeur, a screen on which played a Decider, fantasy of Decider himself, suave and buff at the top of a stair, exuding an exquisite control and lauding it over a servant at the bottom, bustling along with the tea serving and vial of cognac to fire the drink. Up here, you idiot. The Deciders took Anne apart, organ by organ, sinew by sinew, and they copied these parts into the husk of the new Anne with skill and dark intent. As they did this, they would pause, mewling into their sinister autopsy. Little organ of original Anne, what can you do for us now? Little eyes of original Anne, what will you accomplish now? And you, sinews that bind operation of motion, where walk you now? Tongue that composed many ballads and odes for your time, how will you sing? They gloated in their desire to reveal the nothingness of all things and to murder poetry. They could not remove or mutate her consciousness, which stayed intact in the retreat and isolation of original Anne. They made their copy a mockery of original Anne, undoing the mana of original Anne, who they cast into a virtual prison while they went about their plot of alienating humans from their linguistic natures. Language would become separated, torn from its vital dwelling place. Humans would be living out history in a life of unrelenting state without poetry. The archive of the multiple voices was endangered, years in the making to preserve breath and intellect, imagination's other place, as psychic inscription, and to let humans of the future know that some of us were not just killing one another. You would never guess, they said. Look at our creation, a perfect simulacrum. And they looked to a time of acquiescence where the populace would be silenced, where the attention span of humans, ever waning, would ride the waves of mediocrats and here tell endlessly, monotonously, the slow drip of the undulating fortunes of celebrity worlds and become even more accustomed and inured to the beat and thrum of war and more in lockdown and more in lockdown. There was a decider of the fifth rank of the state of rectilinear space as it applies to a subject's metabolism, decider of how many gold stars on a bonnet, or from one entering the room of major decision-making feeling diminished. There was a decider sitting behind a massive desk of protocol and power, facing windows of gray light in sad anemic offices over which more deciders preside. Deciders of who leaves or stays, who gets laid off, who must be demoted, who closes rank. It was not a happy world. But archive is shelter. Archive is the disembodied voice of a palpable consciousness. Archive is a jumbled dream. Archive needs poetry. You must never forget. Archive is inscription, is aspiration, tells many stories. I am Archon, and a mere inscripted postcard is archive. When we return to our speech and start our own country, take this as directive. Memory of an animal is also yours. Archive all opposable thumbs we have record of, and many wisdom identities. Archive is housed by and reanimates sentient beings. Archive is nest, is house, is reverie. Archive will hold you, and the line comes, I swear it, from the breath. Archive is Obad, is Alba, is Tagalid, is seduction. Archive is dying, and archive is not dying. Who lives to push the buttons to install the implants of archive? Afar, ancient, a forest, a mountain to climb, an orange sunset, a cloth for the body, strong ropes to circle and carry, dynamite with an app for soil content, an app to read constellations in the sky. Moon, a fingernail above you is a modest proposal, and sometimes a wildebeest on the tundra remembers a former life, and an albatross crossed your shadow at sea one day. Tristan, whose name means sadness, quested the grail and drank a love potion. This is the sublimated test of future identity. Identity.
That was amazing. I can't believe I meant to speak after that. In any way, everything I say will be dumb. I will just move directly on to Maureen. Thank you so much, Anne, for that. That was incredible. Maureen Owen is the author of many collections of poetry, including Imaginary Income, one of my favorites, Erosion's Pull, Edges of Water, Untapped Maps, and Country Rush. She is also the recipient of multiple awards, including the award from the Foundation for Contemporary Performance Arts, the American Book Award for her book A.E., Amelia Earhart, the Fund for Poetry Award, the Colorado Book Award, the Los Angeles Times Book Festival Prize finalist, and the National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship Program. She, like others here, has been a director of the Poetry Project at St. Mark's Place, and also has served as a poet publisher, first publishing Telephone as the magazine, a mimeograph, and then Telephone books. One of my favorite lines, I think, speaks to the slipperiness of her poetry. Removed from the centerfold of your imagination, I will be able to distinguish myself, a facet of the great Midwest. Strong and sensible, a girl who can follow the moon right down the middle of a gravel road. She has lived in Minnesota, Seattle, San Francisco, Japan, New York City, and Denver, which she reads from us today from. Take it away, Maureen.
Thank you. Am I up? Okay. Well, thank you so much, and it's great to be reading with this very illustrious group we have here today. Some of my titles are kind of long, so I'll just pause between the title and the poem as well as I can. This first work is for Ed Friedman, and the title is Balmy Tomorrow, Saturday, more snow predicted. The lilacs are in turmoil. Or Lariat. All of those years here are gone, she said in Spanish, as she picked through the wreckage littering the trailer where she and her husband and their 5 children had lived for almost a decade. The way it looked. Butter moon in battered shards, 1/4 up the east wall of the beauty parlor, much as honeycomb, that face, that moon squinting out along such a sing of cricket, katydid, hopper, and cicada, loose stitches in the seam. Chanel referred to the nuns at the orphanage as her aunts through the glassless windows. On Saturn, diamonds rained down as into a pool lit from above, whether we were different fissures. Downhill to us came a kimono woman swinging a bright Japanese lantern, igniting tufts of grass. Like a child, I have checked my closet before bed. And this one has a sort of super long title. Standing on the petals keeps you nimble. From the very top of envy, half of the people burn ultraviolet. Or where did May Kasahara's letters go? Had he received them? It seemed he had. What ocean reaches to us uneasily, where a sundry carried gathers, accumulation all around? Which is more stubborn than the other, would be turned out into be on your own in all, but the black seaweed, that look green gives us from its hillside, that grimace of the sky, that river winds by, shakes its head, that earth burps under our footsteps. We jump up and down on it. We jump up and down, up and down. We are jumping on it, jumping up and down. Dark waves of seagrass, hot pink roses, voodoo, voodoo, voodoo roses. This is titled Captions of Agate and Sulfuric Bubble, that she had irony. A nod to bustling, spotted that was not every spin getting more beaten. Abstrusity, give me wall into a chance modern at its foot of shoes pinned forlornly to a message, not simply who finds everything serves agog, white underbelly of plain, brushing, bluing, continual, agreeing to be impossible between my house and theirs. At night, I go to bed with everything I'm thinking, nothing wearable wanting. Hibiscus blossoms wrap around themselves, flippantly elegant, an awry intimacy, so unaware, so unserious. Weren't we also written in that order or saturated so? This piece is dedicated actually to Patricia Spears Jones. The title is Juggling and Put Them, He Went On, Metamorphic, a Man in Pearls. It is the nature of the afternoon to speak to us in parables, deep-seated, definite, that poignant that reveals our cafecito, one's last affair with the throes of torpor, salt breeze suffused of salt pans, and always city, oddly angled, elevated, stuffed into a powdery yellow stillness, unspoiled by hardly enough, at first glance, an equation, friable. Elliptical questions, simply no way to tidy. Silence would involve withdrawal. Making would at one end be slim, would be keeps, as the grooves of smooth variance that draw on diverse. And this poem actually was written for Bill Berkson after he passed away. Everyone has lost a memory. She pokes me as the altar boy hoists a long poled crucifix. Look, Jesus has a broken arm. The snapped forearm swings rhythmically on its pinning. Marilyn Monroe never takes her gloves off through the whole performance. The other singer has to do all the finger snapping. Time to get out the thread, the swishing of a detail veers. Perhaps our brains do all the guesswork, winking. We see the nose and upper mouthpiece of the iron war mask fastened with tiny latches shaped as doves. And no, heat, thick and soundless, baffles the leaves, but the tree shades itself. This is a very short poem titled Light, Color, Composition, and Plasticity. Charles Olson and Edward Dahlberg, double dated. Actually true. And in the last part of this little series is, this poem has no title. Was death ever so beautiful, with carefully drawn wings in a long black sheath, an orange-yellow lantern fan in her hand? And then this next little series I'm going to read is from a manuscript titled Caregiver's Log. Airplane crash near the doll's head. To feel the length of her body again, as I lifting when she bent her bending. No compass needing on sidewalks. We don't have nowhere to go. Scarlet witches. Did I have a father? No, nobody there. We just walked, handfuls of ditch lilies, clouds thin as stitches. Whose Mariposa tulip, neon hedgehog cactus, chiaroscuro, cold case, spits warm water. Hair barbered in a boy's cut, she wore her brother's hand-me-downs of flesh, where once these toothpick arms buried a face in a horse's mane. I am her secrets now. Fling two windows wide to a vast crystal dark, to the butterfly nebula, 3,800 light years away. Jets and gas bubbles peel off its stars. Stellar winds slam its nebula. Her chaos, I'm a mess. Why don't I get better? Chapstick, rosemary, face cream, pillow pile, ice water, toothpick, Tums. Bedside science stories. Once upon a time, there was a rainforest near the bottom of the world. And this is titled Neither dozy moths nor their gauzy swarms, penumbra bundling through shadow. Do you see it flying up there near the ceiling? No, what is it? The nightbird up in the corner near the ceiling. Two earrings dangle from a fork prong, fussy occupation, but up close, volant, somewhere above her bed, one of many shades, arriving mute of darkened silk, her winged fabric tortuous, short-sighted, drawn to cadence. Highlights vary, crisscross, unstable mishmash, no surface flat enough, off-kilter shadow, bending voices, ignoring. What seethes within that plumage, sucks from the room all oxygen, vegetation thick as thunder, knots between us into some exotic vacuum. And this one has a slightly longer title. The queen is a triangle. The knight is a right angle. The bishop diagonal. Moving, the pawn is like the queen, only lesser, she said. The pines look woolly up November's air. She rolls her hand in crisp leaves under her chair. What are you looking for? My glove. You have both your gloves on. Oh, I thought I dropped one. And this piece was written for a piece of artwork by Joe Carey to be at his art show. And I actually don't know if the show ever is up yet because of COVID, but this was the poem I sent him. Title is Perfection Isn't Stable. As though ascending in an elevator, enormous white of Kleenex floating cubes, rectangles of it, kitchen counters, bedside table, trays, bureaus, dresser tops, her pockets airily stuffed of blouse and pants, jackets, PJs, coats and vests. Piled 4 pillows high, steep hill of feathers, mauve size between a thin red satin ribbon sewn nightly, toppling. Folding her boxy blue and white striped, embroidered with tiny cobalt palm trees swaying. Long after she wore his black t-shirts to bed, her seersucker pants, faded cowboy shirt, snap buttons, ribbings on the cuffs kept. Yellow doorway trapezoid. Who is that boy? She queried. Puffs of smoking pigment rising spread a geography of colored liquid through his burning clothes. Above us, clouds flee southward. Grounded, our wind blows north. Her hair blows forward, mine blows back. Mark a line on a milk white plank table, anchoring a stasis of modality. Pillowed in fabric, swaying upward in gathers and drapes, arms emerging through buffon, unbridled, she unlike all others. The PT and OT girls arrive, lean, celestial. Tiny hoops of silver line the curves of their ears, bracelets of pewter and turquoise, muscle, skeletal, cardiac, fulcrums of movement. They parachute out of normal sky, self-winding, counting repetitions. She, palimpsest, once carried me, a babe in arms, an infant, to see man o' war. No other horse ever won such fame, her exaltation. And this last piece is titled All Duets Fracturing. I tuck her oxygen cord over the coat rack above the doorway, through the title page of The Kitchen God's Wife on top of the bookshelf, so she won't trip on it getting out of bed during the night. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Maureen. That was beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to move to Alice Notley, who I will confess to anyone who will listen was my own gateway drug to the New York school. In her Mysteries of Small Houses, she has a poem which reads, "In order to be honest, I must change my poem drastically. Can't get there this way. I'm now the poet in this story." If you're there for the ride of her over 40 books of poetry, you will be audience to these many changes in pursuit of an honesty in poetry. These pursuits have yielded multiple accolades, including the most recent 2015 Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize bestowed to her by the Poetry Foundation, who have hailed her one of America's greatest living poets. Thank you for being here, Alice. I'll let you take it away.
Oh, Alice, will you unmute? Thanks.
Am I on now?
Yeah, you're on now.
Oh, I wasn't before. No one heard any of my remarks. This is called The Beaded Horse. I wrote it in about 2006. A small white horse from another planet wishes to talk to me. It is only a few inches in length. Its skin is composed of white beads. White beaded, it speaks hesitantly in English. It has vocal cords. It has a pink mouth and tongue. Heavenly seed pearls for horsehair? Try not to reach a rationale, only to myself on welfare and in public. For I came to you when you least expected new knowledge in your candled reality, frying squash blossoms dipped in batter on the courthouse lawn. Leave this town. Oh, one cannot go back on a planetary promise. You never promised the earth your skeleton. It assumes it. I hate this cajoling universe, these passionate black-winged moths telling my eyes to perceive nothing but their sisterly claws. Can you find the law in this town? An infidel possesses my voice. Who are they to degrade me, they so easily imagined? Only a dream could make them be of interest. My sister, the Fury, had told me I couldn't get over heartbeat or break, she said, heat of the orange rift chimera of our alphabet. The girls fly screaming above the moving walkway. Listen to the horsey, too white. You're painting the walls of heaven too white, says the African, dropping his teacup. I catch it. Where are you going? Anyone? Stop telling me things, staging events, trying to focus on agreement in our corner of this constriction room of no landscape and filthy apron. This is what I have against heaven. The desert of minutes remembers us well, so do we have to? The people whose care was enslavement. Your drug addiction in my kitchen? A haunting tenant plots to take over a street gang in this afterlife, and her passivity, and nicer still, his manicure flashes dutifully across the skies. I took a bullet for you. We are the reminiscing convicts. One way or another, one would kill. That was our ideal, our desperation, our incarnate bread. Some people are called perverse for the audience's pleasure. I just don't want to be here, though you have lovely qualities. The horse isn't of this nature, being magical, struggling to speak to us. Hasn't it come from its own revolutionary land? The superior man had said, look at these white walls we've painted. I can't stay, I said. I have a problem. Effects, he said. Yes, effects, personal and consequential, but we'll meet in the living room again to look at the flawless drawings. I awoke and remembered my own priceless artwork was ruined. Where grace overdue doubts you, generations of satellites clank above the trees, bringing satisfaction from the vacuous regions, out of the dark confinement, out of the more moneyed arts. The horse's tiny tongue is working again. Twisted to shape you, tulip of assignment. It could be about heroin or shamanism. I could sing your ravenous adherences. The woman was cut into 3 pieces, accompanied by successful yields, retrieval of indulgences, and a movie star's penchant for charity. Horse says they always promise to make it up to you in other ways. For example, as you grow old, they'll wipe your dribble with a tissue. I speak as someone having trouble with a foreign language. Look, the girls are back. The Furies dive bomb us, shrieking. You must accompany me to complete beauty. Don't return to the ugly projects, mount their stairs, elevator danger. Heaven has always been characterized by the gap between the rich and the poor. They know how to rise. The oligarchs mean to be nice. These are the figures of diction and the figures of thought. An open-minded bird erupts from my forehead. We are going away from lustful reversals and all man has ever held dear. What's there? The same gibberish, customs, drugs? No way. It's where the law is clear. The silver malevolence streaming down on the ocean was projected by realism, riches, psychic vibrations of hierarchy. I am going for your heart. I had wanted out, but I kept returning for my purse. I tell the horse it contains my effects. Have I left them this time? Riding you away from the countries of age? Are we the traveling souls? I've got to get there. Do I need my passport, my name, and everything I've done to myself and everyone? No, says the horse, not now, and no ancient foibles, diaries, roulette, Greek drama. Orange malicious boulevard, a diant of flames reflected on my white beads cadenzas. Hell brought us here. There was nothing to learn by following rules. This is the law. Clamorous beauty of courage, sunflowers everywhere, clotted black centers. The tremors of your legs have ceased. No fear now. There was so much of it. Those who are contrary to the old empire, you who hated, have arrived. Heal more than one. We've arrived here with nothing, not even what we thought of us. We are more deadly and savage, more exalted than they've ever known. Here we are the city. that indelicate miracle, not your manners or your children. Did you really think you knew how to organize us, body after body, our deaths twisting in the wind? Here in our city, we don't please anyone. Out of the orange snow and the legality of disaffection, out of the somber, broken crescent and the overdue soul, out of the streaming forelock from our minuscule minds, this liquid dimension has awakened out of Barbary and stretchers. We were always there, Dada. The way you live your life is a blessing on everyone, she says. If I could just get my house clean. The stray life of cat similarly presses on no one. While the others are in strife, they strive. I'm going on in, down, or in, and when you go, that's what I'm doing. Remember the dream of blue-green iridescence that made me gasp 20 years ago? Now it's more green-black. It would be to make you happy, a color like that in the beginning. And so much color and so much sound. The voice said, have remembered sound relations unto my death, with colors spreading behind each tonal arrangement. I'm standing on the stage of the theater again. I like it here. Coltrane beside, starting in the middle of something on favorite things without these are a few. So if you're in the middle, his eyes show tension like in the 61 performance. Mix it up some more, but trying to keep you happy. Then he's done. And I say, what? You could, you dead, each remember a set piece from your life, but you don't, or do you? I remember when one says of the breakup, but I do it like art now, a play I know. The breakup or crack up, says another. I remember cracking up. I mean, breaking down, but now I'm not him, and I see it like a sculpture that moves in place of some me. So is life like painful art, or do I need to know? We've gone somewhere else, for so many of us souls are not from Earth. Last night, comet souls roared at me and through me as I lay there speaking with the Coltranes. Whoosh, zam, whoosh. I wanted to tell you, the comet says, that you aren't listening to us enough. I don't know how to as human, maybe I say as God I do, and probably am unconsciously, for unconscious to me is most of God being. It would be simply love, John says, that you shape with. So the comet says, whoosh, whoosh, but it is airier and like. It's like your metallic language, I say, with the glockenspiel overtones. The comet so, yes. And even though fast, mild, and slowing down, milder, the aesthetic relations that I know are of curved distance to hot speed, yes, there's another temperament involved, as an instrument is tempered, you would say. For I can know what you do in the mix of soul that we are, and everyone can have a bit of everyone. What about the cubicles? What about the substance? What about all the things you keep inventing, Alice, to explain things to us? Each of these pages is a cubicle, obviously. And the substance of the substance, and the thrusting into my chest of your packages of ill-done action and speech is almost violent for me, taking in your considered badnesses. Can be very real without being real to another. But we are different here, another says. And what was done becomes more distant. Does it become shapelier? I ask. Sometimes it seems messier and more like the substance smeared everywhere. Whatever we all are is smeared everywhere visibly and starts to sound. Then John says, then you don't have favorite things, dead. Except you could have a favorite sound relation or abstract shape sometimes. And I play a cracked up need to know the unconsciously unrandom happenstance. What has ever been random? Or has it all been just slow? Then quickly a tragic change that has its own beauty. I say, I like tadpoles. I also like okra. But this comet soul looks like a zipping tadpole. But will I never eat okra again? Cut, rolled in flour, fried to death, salt and pepper? I could play that, John says, just that. Cut, rolled in flour, fried to death with salt and pepper. I have been let out of prison. This is the first 3 pages of I have been let out of prison. The one tizood anthropic moody there, palless, losing the parts of words, I think, swordless, grayness, scoot on within it. Tartarus or Pluto's Chronos, mine, Mart, not human. What is it here? Will one's interior claim the supposed outer? Art thou, my mind? Yes, I'm answering, boss. Through rough boatbridge ken, unreputed motels, floats of pastimes, find that buckled luminous language, molten, of who am I now, clasping misparts, is who all of mind, agate melt, liquid boned, uncursed, inside the blood of Mondo, or that various myth? Reamass, mix up now, so I don't know. List is to panse arm apollex's pronon clue. It's my first self. In filmy conditio, on gray, as soon as word. A vow coded already in the sea's pages, lapping, name a hell that it's in its book. Ah, but anthem flower, remem, mid around, where as misted, these words, all the sticks to my mind, redempt. One sees no point, not except. One, time scratchy, help me no one live. Find the line, this cloak blessed, but can't find one's heart. Ragged, isn't it, echo? And echo calls back in strange tongue, nom, yon, sweetly ke. World is words, not though you coherence, solicited in its youth. T, echoing back this blessing, a philometric petal, an outtone glue stick puts it on you echoed. One sticking one's pieces to all of it, the cloud of it, or it's to one's, lots of pieces that one's in, ducky. Subghost of long, clinks about in one like God, ego, maybe one's, or historical else's, cultural, something I ate long time ago, dishonored or cathono word else disgracedly, member disgrace, echo, guilt, disgrace of the debtor, then one pushing on in circuit cloud-like hoopos, pass through here from outer Dane, prose of mockery. Where goes your hands that evolve to kill a one? Don't believe that crap. Crass zeros of a language, mouths of plaguey blamezo, cardial shivers. I didn't kill them, they left being unreal. Press not towards the past, its rank propitiation to what was put in one's cephalic dross. Stay on cloudy path. Bits of cloud to one and each of talk nuages, friends in substance, these ones ever shifting factions. This word, I'm a bit of, or whole thing, that is what path of, not pity. Why am I here? Thou art destiny's own fool? Oh, moan, who cares about one's looking for a taxon? No, mean, langen here, language or chaos's own words. Be in it, you're being it, this is it. I'm a word of. What's it for? It's right here. I'm in it, damn it, right now. Utmost, precipitately, one is being it. Clouded over it's there of me, unthemed kissing droplets. Inside, all the same. These words, so see 'em transported. One's ever of it though, speaks it in order to bespeak. And agnostic birds praise it in soft report for air. Aren't I? Aren't I here? But I'm somewhere else now. And the same, different. What do I seem like? Nothing. Idioglot or poly, undeliberate tongue. Oh, there's God's fake blood all over here. No God, it's Grail water. Damon's liquid language. Don't see it, say it in this old human soul that is your hairnet, one's loitering eternally open-mouthed. Oh, blood of conception, just an idea, thief. There's voleur in me stealing stories. Where do such sparks come from? What is one doing in this goddamn diner, barred from any food, justice, or public? The end.
Alice, thank you so much. That was beautiful. It's really, I'm just particularly reflecting on the way that the ear can hear things that the eye can't see, and how nice it is to hear your different voices this evening. It's really special. Let's take a 5-minute break at this point, and come back in 5 minutes, at which point we'll listen to Elinor, and then to Patricia, and then to Eileen. But please, everyone, take 5 minutes to look away from the screen, I suppose, and see you back here at 10 past. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to hand over to Elinor now. I just wanted to say briefly all of the comments in the chat, and hopefully poets, you're reading the responses to your readings in the chat. Just remind me of Gertrude Stein talking about understanding poetry and like framing understanding in the context of enjoyment, and saying if you enjoy it, you understand it. And it seems to me there's a huge amount of that happening in the chat, which is amazing. So our next poet is Elinor Nauen, currently living in New York City, originally from South Dakota, with roots in Liverpool. And she's written a number of great books with, just thinking about what some of Maureen's titles, with similarly amazing titles. So Cars and Other Poems, American Guys, So Late Into the Night, Now That I Know Where I'm Going, My Marriage A to Z, and she edited a book called Ladies Start Your Engines, Women Writers on Cars and the Road, and Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, Women Writers on Baseball. And she's been published in a lot of magazines and anthologies. She's also been part of the Poetry Project community for many decades. She's a kind of great collaborator, as many New York School writers are, as many of our writers here tonight are. And she's a brilliant writer of prose as well as poetry. Her blog is kind of full of a generosity of spirit. Her work is often full of other people. I really recommend taking a look at her blog, and also at a piece that she's recently kindly shared with us for our new website called Everything Turns Into Writing, which you can read on the website. And she reflects in that about the idea of the atmosphere of poetry being as important as any particular poem. And also suggests, you know, there's this sense that I think we might think about in relation to the New York School, that everyone could be or should be a poet. So Elinor, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Thank you, Rona. That was a great introduction. Congratulations on the launch of the Network for New York School Studies. And it's a great honor to be part of this inaugural reading. Personal history. I had never been in a city before I packed up my belongings in 2 paper bags and drove 1,000 miles to spend the rest of my life in New York. I was the smartest and dumbest girl in my 8th grade class. Being dumb never got me into trouble, but being smart did every day. When he saw her in a tight teal fish scale dress, he knew he had to spill a drink on her. I come from the prairie. My lies are long. Scarcely disfigured. In the space of his wink, we ran away to Spain, had a baby, and drove away too fast. Trouble is my maiden name. Look at me and tell me what I need to know. Nervous as hell, razor small shards of ice in a glass, drink Rheingold and smoke old golds. The sky so pink it cried. All I ever wanted was for you to look at me for as long as I wanted. The history of Western philosophy. Bertrand Russell had just about convinced me there's more to life than sex. I'd like to go to bed with him, but he's dead. Even windowless monads are sexy. They remind me of gonads careening around and bumping each other, hitting on each other. I know more philosophy than that. You're not supposed to mix your muse with your mistress, or they'll both fuck you over. The real question is Is there anything we can think of which, by the mere fact that we can think of it, is shown to exist outside our thought? The answer is sex. Therefore, God exists. Sex is a revelation, a reason, empirical, possible, credible, self-consistent, the best of all possible worlds. Sex precedes existence, precedes essence. I fuck, therefore I attract everybody with a force directly proportional to the product of their masses. Buridan's ass, unable to choose between two equidistant bundles of hay, died of hunger. Call me up sometime. I'll make you lunch. Ring of Ice. 1. I'm going to say to you, a human being can live without complaint in an ice house built for seals at a temperature of 55 below. There is no land uninhabitable, no sea innavigable. Darkness gave them a certain drunken confidence. What brings me close to God is the silence of snow. 2. The half-melted office safe left from the burning of Bill Day's hotel. That was the lonesome highway calling me. Terror is the given. Open your eyes to the air that's washed the edge of the stars. Perhaps all men, by the very act of being born, are destined to. Where will we live when the world grows dark? I shall not easily forget the first time I laid eyes on Abraham Lincoln. He brushed them off with an air of disgust. Snow whirled about our ears. Hollywood Boulevard for Steve Carey. There's nothing like waking on an early summer day to see sunlight swooning on an automobile. You call to me from the courtyard, and the diamond earrings you'd stolen for us from the shelter I built for when the sky starts falling. The sky is falling. Come in, Rangoon. The glamour of your interest loosened the force of your voice. Come in, Rangoon, and I'm set for Burma. Hey, Steve, it's 3 a.m. Do I know where you are? Of course, in my heart, in Rangoon, largely here. Poem. When the war came at last, we were too old to fight. We could only wait behind locked doors for the enemy to burst in. We slipped out at dawn to beg. We ran to the river to see the soldiers in their masks. Were they smiling? Did they see us? Failure left us vulnerable. Our successes left us. We wanted the past to beam on our careless beauty. We had nothing to give as cannon fodder, numbers, gurneys. No one wanted what we didn't have. We slept and woke as old people do. We slept until we were young. Poem ending with a line by Susan M. Schultz. The plywood that makes the cafe 2 stories comes from a desire to be thunder. The pale coffee can't hide cheapness. The things men say about women lie on a greasy table. It makes no difference to be here, no past, no home, only a blister and dark chocolate, wet with wine. Half the women have black eyes. The loved ones are dead. The loved ones are right here. Chislik, Lefse, bison burgers, foods lost like the house on Summit. The women turn away and hide their talons. Without the faces they loved, tomorrow they plow the sea, as if to apologize now, which is now, then, were to deny a truth set in amber. So I've been writing a lot of poems. I've been studying Norwegian and I've been writing a lot of poems in Norwegian. So I'm going to read one very short one in Norwegian and then I'll read it in English. And I think my Norwegian teacher is on this. So I should have her read it, but anyway. De norske så biblioteket. Et rom på en gate og legge seg ned med en bok. Lampen kaster et aprikoslys på sengen. Vi duser og driver og duser. Horace, en dikter av en annen dimensjon, bestiller en whisky sur. So that's the Norwegian Sleeping Library. A room on a street to lie down with a book. Lamp throws apricot light on the bed. We doze and drift and doze. Horace, a poet of another dimension, orders a whiskey sour. An old story. When I didn't give the young man money, he said, "Is it because I'm black and you a old white lady?" And I said, "That's right, fuck off." And when I told this to a guy I know, he told me a story about a girl he once lived with who made the thugs on the block back off by screaming, "You fucking pussies," her tininess making her curses bigger. He found a story of his own to top, correct, and instruct me. Fuck off, you fucking pussy. On a bar stool. The government walks in talking about Bob Dylan. A man and a dog snicker. The light is low. The mood is sour. Who knows who goes to the swinging John door to peep at the skinny girls hauling up their socks, who follow a large-headed, handsome man in a goose-step jacket and a line of talk, pulling us into the past like blue comes to cheese. The barkeep can't believe another round for the house, another government for Bob and me. And I'm going to read one more poem. It's a little longer, and it's one of those poems like Ron Padgett's title, poems I guess I wrote. I don't remember where this came from. And it possibly is a collaboration with Maggie Dupree, but that possibly not. So here we go. I know I was trying to think if I wrote this 20 years ago or 3 months ago, you know, it's like, Anyway, America, the most beautiful. Your Brooklyn Bridge flung across some great water, oh worthy son of our great wall. Your graffiti artists scribbling black jokes on the Mack trucks underground, oh worthy sons of Maya Kafka. Your buxom women, their charms slung like rubles in a samovar, worthy daughters of the blue suede shoes. Your Odessa-esque cinema simpering toward the Golden West, a hamlet of the steppes. Your Empire State Building rising as high in brilliant stories as Anton Chekhov, the master. Your corn fed to the gals of the Midwest, yellow-haired as the house of the rising sun, where anarchists are kings, just like our own Prince Kropotkin. Your Lincoln Continental Divide, dividing your two continents of white and not white, as the Urals divide our Europe from our Asia. Your motels in Shreveport with paper-protected toilet and free ice, oh worthy of Pushkin's faded tailcoat. Your automobiles as powerful as Dobrudyotov's, spitting hot fire in a night dark as Stalin's heart, hurling Dostoevsky big as a man's head. Your cowboys like Mongols, honky-tonking on the back of a horse, such worthy sons of Genghis Khan. Your fruited plains where Hamasfields get a fair shake, where a good horse is never a bad color and you don't get splinters from wrestling timber wolves. Your mysterious games, football the unwieldy, dwarf tossing, and the sadly beautiful ball of base. Oh, not unlike a caviar blini. Your chariot slipping to a sweet home in Chicago, swept from the bellies of lead. Oh, poet worthy of a Volga drowning. Your psycho killers, angrier than any in Mother Russia, mass murdering more than we could hope to, dressed in our drab fur hats. Oh, America most beautiful, how I long to reach your golden shore. America that goes for the gold. America, I love your gold diggers with their hearts of gold. America, such a land of gold braid and gold bricking. America, I expect a gold star from you. America, your Grand Central Station is a bowl for goldfish. America, starring Goldilocks as the first lady of speak shows on television. America, where I can buy all the turnips I can eat in your supermarkets, all the shoes I can wear in your supermarkets. America, someday I will be your premier. I will control Fogtown and listen to the slush pumps play your Negro jazz. I will operate an oofus and talk your kafooster. I will ice your president and eat your hot tamales. America, so's your old man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elinor. Yeah, again, just beautiful and much to think about, thought-provoking stuff. So thank you. Patricia, let me come to Patricia next. Patricia Spears-Jones has been teaching and editing in New York City for more than 30 years. She has a number of wonderful collections, including Painkiller, Femme du Monde, The Weather That Kills, and you know, her work has also featured in numerous important anthologies, including a Norton anthology of contemporary and African American poetry, Starting Today, 100 Poems for Obama's First 100 Days, Black Nature, 4 Centuries of African American Nature Poetry, which is really cool, and Best American Poetry from 2000. And she too has worked at the Poetry Project. She's held residencies at Yaddo, at Breadloaf, at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, among other places, and has various kind of honors to her name, including grants from the National Endowment for the Arts. She's been appointed as a senior fellow for the Black Earth Institute, amongst other honors. And her work is often shaped by music, by the city, and by the relationship, I think, between the marvelous and the mundane. And I'm thinking of a poem in which we have these lines about kind of, I'll just read the 3 lines because I just love them. So it's artists perambulating the shadowed alleys of downtown Manhattan, memories of dream dulled in punk and rock clubs, filthy bathrooms, how much of what was is still and now in the body, in the bones of the body. So Patricia, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this incredible group. And I want to thank all of the previous readers for like making everybody like, wow. It's all very strange to see myself in these kinds of settings. I'm going to read some old stuff because Elinor was asking, what should we read? And then she said, I think I'll read something old. And then I thought, well, I can read something really old and then move on to this. But like Elinor and Eileen, we all came to the Poetry Project in the 1970s. It was a very interesting time to be there, especially for girls. And yeah. And I was one of the few persons of color, period. So it was, you know, but I lived downtown. I did not live uptown. And so I'm going to read a poem that's very much about being somebody downtown and being me and going with that mundane and the marvelous. Stars. They are everywhere tonight. In the sky, in the ocean. A bum said they were in my eyes. I would like to be reborn a star, flashing gases, moving elements, moving so fast that girls get dizzy twirling beneath me. I would like to be named for a legend. The series of stars to the north of Andromeda is the constellation Patricia. I would like to be probed and studied and never understood astronomy. See, there are stars there. Just beyond that water tower, over those trees, stars shining, dimly but shining. And this was from my little magazine, WB. There was only one issue that ever got published because I ran out of money, so I couldn't publish the second one. But it also gives you a sense of where I was, what I was like in the city. And I'm going to thank Maureen Owen for publishing me in Telephone 12. Yay! Yes, I feel like I have like, you know, some of the best stuff. And this is a little poem called Another Lesson in Geography. My favorite dress was made in California, bought in Alaska, and given to me in Tennessee. So those were like, I loved writing these kind of odd little weird lyrics But things got a little more intense later on. But I want to read this poem, and this is for Alice. Letter to Alice. And this is in Painkiller. Letter to Alice. I'm up in Squaw Valley. Yes, the name is utterly inappropriate in these late 20th century days. But hey, history isn't pretty, especially place names. Monument Valley has no monuments. The Eiffel Tower, or Tour Eiffel, just stands there, squat on the ground, then rises grid and girders. The difference between New York and Paris are landmarks: a tower for tourists, a bridge connecting boroughs. You can walk on both, but where does the tower take you? But back to you. Your poetry is now in the hands of critics, for far-flung, like starlings, they peck at loaves of text. Forgive the metaphor. I know you must find this thrilling or pitiful, depending on the tenor of gray that manifests itself as Parisian sky. Light gray, mist, darker gray, rain, rain, rain. Thinking about the myth of Alice Notley, everyone wants just that touch of your Irish wit, if indeed, and your whiplash phrasing, like Ornette Coleman off the Stars. I was like thinking of you riding the Second Avenue, but there's a favorite poem of mine by Alice where she's on the Second Avenue bus. Okay, excuse me. I was thinking of you riding the Second Avenue bus, schlepping kids, clothes, groceries, slips of paper, with this fragment or that dream, a poet's eye on the world floating by. The office building where Planned Parenthood used to be, the bland yet ugly modernist Episcopal church, the dull gray high-rises, a synagogue seemingly empty, the skinny boys carrying guitars, weary from drink and doubt. But this is my Second Avenue, circadian, humbler, noisy, and full of mysteries unraveling. Yours is different. Your Second Avenue is more home, no mystery, but just a late supper needed fixing, or another poet in town to entertain between mothering and marriage and raving metaphors to be tamed. My Second Avenue is for checking in and checking out, away from the wrench of too many other hungry baby poets angling for the teacher's glimpse, the mentor's ease. It is a Second Avenue of bland buildings and skinny boys dangling guitars. And the phrases of Frank O'Hara, something planetary, and there is no Howard De Silva look-alike on my bus. But the usual mutterers and weary ones ready for television and a really good soak. When next we meet, it will be good to gossip. Forget our woes. Forget our woes. Fog softens contours, sunburst clarified grids and girders, tower and bridge. Give my regards to Tour Eiffel. Its twin, the Brooklyn Bridge, makes memory easier to hear. Those footfalls across the East River, walking away from Manhattan, across Brooklyn, the Atlantic, on to the 10th Arrondissement, a cafe, some wine, and your laughter. Okay. Rona didn't mention that I have a new and selected called A Lucent Fire. And it has a lot of the poems in earlier books. One of them, as going back to my another thing in geography, which is about dress, here is Comme des Garçons, which is the name of a famous Japanese designer. The Italians really know how to do red. Now it is the Japanese. Poised on poured concrete, this vivid scarlet is expensively, carefully cut harlot silk as parachute. As midnight purple velvet brushes the hand, cat-like as if in conversation with the silk. Persian versus Siamese. A chaste white slithers the length of mannequins, oddly shaped as if female form is an afterthought. Under the stern, light suave white floats a line of solitude, crystalline as first snowfall, forgetful of the swift human charge that takes to pulling threads from the elaborately disguised seams, splatters white water, scatters, scars every attempt at human perception. Scars every attempt at human perfection. Like this green jacket, suddenly male. Will the actor buy it? Will it work for all the other boys? Ascending the brutal staircases towards chaste white and harlot red, lipstick luscious, what matters if the forms dematerialize, leaving sex, solitude, and the frank shape of credit for contemplation? Elsewhere, all is feline. Etta James at the Audubon Ballroom. I am a huge fan of Etta James, and I don't even know if she ever sang at the Audubon Ballroom, but I figured that one of the great things about being a poet is you can make shit up. And so I did. And I made up a scene where she gets to meet Malcolm X. That's what's going on here for people who don't know. The Audubon Ballroom at last was where Mr. Malcolm X, Malcolm Little, aka Malcolm X, was murdered. Anyway, but he was also extraordinary. Etta James at the Audubon Ballroom. Someone knocks over a chair, drunk one, fight ready, but this vivid sound stops fist. Who let them big black birds in again this night? What flight, fight? Let's try dancing the blues to smithereens. Rustle up those moans and sighs for the good working Henrys of this world. Ready to block and hustle. Shit and cuss you out somewhere backstage. The money scatters. Your skin beams sweetness while your voice screams, where's the fucking funhouse? Your chest blossoms possibilities, hips thick enough to swing which way, and oh my, there he stands. In suit sharp as steel and shoes patent leather, squarish frames, that wise guy demeanor, the tipped chapeau. You picked up the high heel shoes you throwed down, then repaired your makeup for that second set, the one that promises a better crowd. Another chair tips back as smoke swarms the littered stage. You're too young for this mess, and he'll never grow old. And one of the great things about downtown New York was I got to meet and learn from Lorenzo Thomas. And I also know that he was a very, very good friend, as also of Alice and everybody else here. Dinner with the ghost of Lorenzo Thomas. He was wearing a dapper suit and a midnight blue brocaded tie. No stripes on him. There was a sparkle in his brown eyes. His ghost was most corporeal. You're still curious about the world? I asked. Oh, yes, said he, spying an Obama 2012 poster. Quote, brother man needs to keep smoking, unquote, he opined, the hole in his throat the size of a ballpoint pen. Reefa, I guessed. Oh, yes, he laughed. The digits of his spectral hands shook gestures. What do you miss? I asked. Skin, he says. I remember flesh soft, so to touch, or rough from scabs on shins, falling off bicycles and such. Tough. Life is tough. But you, and then his voice mumbled something meant for me, but, oh, Lorenzo, what did you say to me? He chuckled and rhymed. The world is always spinning round like a broken toy you can't shut down. Light crosses the hole in his throat, as if its speed has found the right portal. Reefer, he repeats, and we are laughing. I pick up the bill. It cost what it cost. I'll pay what I can pay. What was it he said? And why couldn't I hear it? And a couple more recent poems. Um, so this is for Yoshiko Chuma and some of her dancers. I was asked by her and Kyle DeCohen to be part of her movement workshop in 2018. And I was supposed to be a bridge. I'm not quite sure why, but I was. Anyway, this is what I wrote. Poetry is prayer, looking for the sacred, healing force for trauma, training the heart, a body reborn. Scope over nose, Nose, end quote, in parentheses, excuse me. Family does not know. Different realities. Dinosaur left behind, another prop on the floor. Museums work with beast of burden, how identity changes over time, moving in joy, moving a gift. Hannah's cigar box, memory and invention. Hannah Weiner was a huge presence in the poetry scene, and she is still missed. And she did see words on her head. Okay. You meet a woman who says, I see words on my forehead, and she designs brassieres. Why not? This is New York City, East 3rd Street, and other poets are sipping something and chatting, and the woman who sees words on her forehead has a generous laughter and kind manner. And why not see words on foreheads or arms or trees or the backs of scratchy jackets of hustling bums, all begging and laughing and drinking? And if not the flop houses, then the men's shelter across the street where daycare children tell me the drunks are old and the younger ones addicts. Already they understand the distinctions and the dangers. It's an East Village world, and buildings are creaky and shaky with age and sadness. Many poets, mad and hungry, roam around at 3 a.m. on their way to Dave's Corner or some other dive, or if lucky, a bustling Cantonese restaurant where the words are, hello? Oh, oops. I just went out. My goodness, sorry. The words are visible as race walking, and foreheads are covered in curl bangs or scarves, and the green tea's sharp smokiness tosses mist and burrows dreams and liquid notions of ways to puzzle M. Duchamp's urinal or J. Cornell's cosmic boxes, whole systems jeweled and shiny encased and in display so that movie stars can see them within them and find directions to Venus or Saturn or relentlessly return to Earth, East Village, New York City, and myriad cosmic stencil cigar boxes. Okay. This is another invention, but I love the work of Elio Artesica, the great Brazilian artist. He left New York before I even got here, but I don't care. And he was gay, but I don't care about that either. Okay, here we go. Oh, that Brazilian guy. Did I ever see Elio walking some part East Village, curly-headed and densely packed with art and drugs and death's constant shadow? Was he on the corner of Avenue B and 10th Street drinking beer and ogling the pretty Puerto Rican girls? Was he ogling me? Or was he living in an abandoned warehouse, holding on to his pencil, pen, brush on paper, cardboard, found trash, or garment district fabric offloaded by a gang out of the project's whisking splatter of heroin, lost income, drop dangling from a cup of bitches brew? Oh, how to speculate this mad Hendrix-loving artist movement in El Barrio, Loisaida? Or was he uptown, Spanish Harlem, or on the west side, Greenwich Village, hanging with the drag queens early a.m., everybody tired from the bars, the piers, the crumbling edifices of late 60s, early 70s Nueva York? He was on the wild side, the weed, his stash, the dazzled dreams of men who had survived torture, military repression, a bad economy, yet learned to take acid trips one day at a time. Oh, the love affairs we have with the myth of the what ifs and that drug paraphernalia. Oh, night seeker, ill named moon winds your direction home. Thus created this mixed up third world. Loud music, your lips dry from screaming, and January wind, something mighty Hendrix, sun lack on a back meant for napping midday, heat exhausted, thus making a hammock a thing of beauty, backlit by the gallerist while duct tape coiled the rafters of some street legal post, fly fishing flies, pretended gates, tight pants dropped here and there, a thriving masquerade of the handsome Brazilian who could have been the best bad news boyfriend ever. And these are the last two. I had a lot of fun reading these poems. I'm so thankful for this. And Anne Boyer makes a new word. Bell hole, beautiful hole, sophisticated slit. Thus, slut and words of ill effect on females, a trail of blasted curses leads ever on to that valley of prosperous antidotes. You know, the one about, and then the other one, and the one that won her that prize, a husband. No, the house. Bell hole. Artifice pulsates the poet, singes swifts, busy flying tree to tree, while their banner of shit down the hole in the roof, dumbass song, oh, house collecting somebody's debt, wet with memories in a tornado of ideas. Blow the damn hole. Reinvent the sweet scent of early puberty when lampposts threaten to descend upon shouting men, humoring their hormones, but getting not one glimpse or touch of the poet's perfected new word. Bellhole, beautiful hole, cracked earth, shuffling roofs and roofs. Los Angeles is its own topographical feast day. As the virgin girls screaming in crumbling buildings, what night is this? Whose feast is worthy of this temper? These cries, these claims of gestures, bell hole, beautiful hole, sophisticated slit. And then I will end with the poem that Rona was quoting. Um, it is called Self-Portrait as Retratos de Cosas Locas y dos Locos, stolen. And it's dedicated to Papo Colo, who is an incredible Puerto Rican artist and performance artist. And well, you know, he's like everything. He's a little crazy, but wonderful. And I ran into him one day, and this is one of those before times poems, before the pandemic, before we all got shut down and then shoved aside and then shoved ourselves back, sort of. Self-portrait as Retratos de Cosas Locas y dos Locos, stolen. Shall we have cocktails while sipping about the edge of catastrophe? Gin and tonic for summer, whiskey sour for fall. All is not well yet. Sun illumines green-leafed trees, soon bare, soon bare. Our eyes prowl fence edges for morning glory vines. Our ears gallop from the booming bass of pumped up cars. Our legs move as swiftly as a catamaran in dock. We mock the heavens with calls for paradise now. Artists perambulate in the shadow alleys of downtown Manhattan. Memories of dreams dulled in punk and rock clubs' filthy bathrooms. How much of what is still now in the body, in the bones of the body, calcium loss, teeth loose, wrist smaller, so all bracelets jangle, jangle. Lips call repeatedly a song whose words are traces of tenderness, yet sung too softly as if only whispers could make the world hear. Thank you so very much.
I love the music of what we've gotten to hear today, both in references to music and jangle jangle and the lyricism of everything. So thank you for that and for making that kind of manifest. Our last poet this evening, Eileen Myles, brings us to an end that echoes our start insofar as their poetry is known in equal measure to their activism. Accordingly, Eileen has won an incredible amount of awards, many of them multiple times, including the National Endowment for the Arts, the Ludwig Vogelstein Award, the Fund for Poetry 3 times, the Lambda Book Award twice, the fellow at the MacDowell Colony Prize 3 times, Shelley Award from the Poetry Society of America, Foundation for Contemporary Arts. You get the idea. They have published over 25 collections of poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and performances, leading to a really multidimensional career and opus, to borrow Patricia's words from earlier. One of my favorite poems, just because it leaves me still curious about what Eileen's work is ultimately doing, is called Leo Said, and it's quite short. It just reads, "You've got to write clearer so you can be read when you're dead." And something I've appreciated is how much Eileen just doesn't seem to care about that. And there seems to be a quite defiance in the what's called in another poem addition and subtraction that keeps happening throughout, that leaves you wondering what anything necessarily means. So with that kind of opaque introduction, I'd like to welcome Eileen.
Yay, thank you, Rona, and thank you, everybody. This has been, first it was so hard to get in. My computer was not willing to allow me to enter, but my phone said yes. So I'm so good. And this reading, it's such a particularly weird reading to do on a Zoom because we all have such long relationships with each other. And it's so exciting to hear the work together. And I'm home and we're all home, which is so bizarre. And it was like, oh, I think I'll go have a snack. I was like, no, but I never would have thought so much about Patricia and Alice's work having such a sonic relationship. I could really hear it, and hearing Gossamer live, I just love that book so much. And Elinor, who we live closer than anybody and see each other all the time, and it's so fun to read. And that last secret poem, Elinor, so awesome. So just really great. I'm gonna happy you called me an activist, because I have been involved. I've never been really, I've been very involved with protecting our public land in the past year with East River Park. And so the first poem has to do with that. It's called Beloved Park, and it's for Carlina Rivera, who is our city councilor, who is not our friend on this issue.
Oh dear.
And the guy in it is de Blasio, I must say, the monster. The city is like a mismanaged notebook found on a bench by a hopeful man who spun a tale for the city that wanted to change. But once the notebook was his, he began tearing out and selling its pages. One page, the park we love, sold to a man who insisted he could make the park a boat. But where will the trees go, we cried, and the birds that are living in them? The park sailed away in that man's dream. It's the corruption of government. It was my bench. It was our page. This is our sunny day. And I wanted to say that Maureen has resolved the poetry prose conflict by making her titles be prose. That was amazing, those long ass titles, Maureen. And this one's really new. It's called Diet Coke. It says, recycle me. I took the dog on the subway today. And today I have an alarm on my phone called Joan Mitchell. And later on tonight, I said I'd be Joaning. This dog sees everything on 2nd Ave, not far historically from where Robert Harms met Joan Mitchell in the apartment of Joe Lasure right over there. I think of buildings collapsing. I'm having a slice nearby. At the party, everyone's laughing. I say, I'm boning Joan tonight. I'm boning up on Joan Mitchell for the Famous Woman Artist podcast. Honey badly wants a bite. The light just changed, it's bright. The kind of Stefan Grappelli violin playing, well, bicycles pass. Matthew said I would have sobbed, the end was so good, if I had authentic feelings. We laugh. I just spent an hour Zooming with my shrink. The parade of X's in Provincetown. The man in the orange cap walking away. I would cry if it wasn't so damn joyous. He's lowering the awning on the pizza shop, but these feelings just won't go away. I lived some of the time in Texas in Marfa, and back in January, February, I got COVID. I got COVID pretty light, but I spent my 2 weeks in bed watching True Blood. So I became very obsessed with vampires. So I've got lots of vampire poems now. This one's called Beloved. And my friend Joan Larkin is writing a vampire novel. And so there's a joke about that in here. Beloved train. Vampires cry blood. Each poet is required before the time of their death to stay up and write a vampire novel, even though the light doth kill them. Daylight kills vampires, as you know. It will be a short novel. I desired to burn like Joan of Arc, being woman, man, saintly, and the flames made me something magnificent. And what was the story? A novel requires a novel, a hall, a corridor, a prismatic corridor. Human bodies are coming down while being alive, which we, the dead, watch. The candle, the human lights, is a tiny bell to the vampire. He comes one night and puts his cold hand in my mouth and demand that I stop changing so he can get his story out. A dog pushes against the thing in which I embossed the book glinting and the ancient word boss, a strange globe from which spin forth the armaments of the vampire's pain, his long life, his very long life. Warrior, once housewife, next pad on a dog's toe, sore. Another time, maritime, always getting licked. The dog putting her damp paw onto the ground in the night before the day in which the vampire was born. I mean, he died. I have failed in my task of writing my vampire novel. I will never try again. But in the time of a global pandemic, rules have changed. No more essay portions of SATs. No more this, no more this, no more this. And this one's called Mice. It's very recent. They see a cluster of small rubber ducks and scraps of broken shells and think, I'll shit there. We describe them as brazen when they run through what actually is their home. So I begin to kill them because I'm better than them. One was seen running into the bathroom, my bathroom, and a small frail one was found dead right on the floor. And the poison is working, and I feel bad because in fact, I like living with them. They're part of my life. They're little shits everywhere, and I have killed their child. They're unclean, anyone would say. Isn't that why I must kill them? But I'm unclean too. Isn't that why they're here? And I generally have guests who say, this place is so small. They look around and I feel shame. And I look around usually right after a trip or in a couple of days. It's small, but not to them. They think it's huge, perfect. And that is a friend. And why don't I keep them around? Come back, and I know you will. And this one's called March 3rd. I think this is a couple of years old. The quick exchange of emails between the former lovers creates a soft hole in the day and the night before. It snowed, but it was supposed to be larger and everything closed. The streets are wet, I hear, and I won't go into them. One poem for today, but no, many little ones. The coffee slightly altered is good. My bare feet in bed ready to work. I worked in the field of dreams where I have met you many times. I feel closer to you this morning and probably last night when the doorway slightly opened because of our notes was flooded with ghosts. When I was young, I liked the emptiness of my home, and now, like it or not, here is this sweet accumulation. The camera's all that everything I do can't touch the single statement of breeze and loss and quaint beauty, things I've had since I was a kid, the secrets of my home. I feel condemned by this chaotic museum of stuff and Yes, I desire to photograph it, the bowls you liked, the cup I touched, and me in a t-shirt that used to be special, and now I carouse in bed with myself in it. I don't know if this will ever be different, and that is the feeling of this. I feel like a tree, the invisible part of friendship and drinking together and warning. One empty wall is the least I can do for myself. Late at night, I enjoy the brown pages of a cowboy show, TV on my lap till practically dawn. Interesting, written by a gambler. Oh, I have so many shows. One in Florence one day, you were taking a shower. I think I thought, I love this television. Because it's become the way to love. The road of becoming is a screen of belonging on it in my dream. The excellent moments, the man barges in and says, do you ever think about film? The poetry of accident haunts like a circus tent over my days. And that fades, and a new one. I begin to write about dying. This story ends. It begins to be part of the plot. And do I love you for your distance from it? Or could I love you because you are close, or your exciting difference so smart? I love myself, the squeaky little voice that says, in here, owning the void and grooving on it. Voiceover, you're not so bad. And then I began to work. My dead mother is around. My lover not far, keeping you here by not calling anyone. Is that the tub in which I die? Where do? Woo, woo, woo. What's that bird? Because I don't have kids, and this is such a blessing. And I have one last poem. It doesn't have a title. I kept the mask on because I thought I looked good. This restaurant really needs a candle, and like it heard me, a plane passed overhead. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I think Rona's gonna segue us into some Q&A.
There's just a couple of questions really. One of the questions came from Matt, just to do with Patricia's magazine, WB. Matt, Patricia is happy to send you an email and talk a little bit more about it. But it was a one-off publication, a one-issue little magazine, and I agree it's an absolutely fascinating thing to think about, as is Maureen's telephone, which I've always had a real interest in. So Matt, we'll put you in touch with Patricia to talk a little bit more about that. The other question that our listeners has posed is from Nina, and Nina, this is a question. Elinor, sorry, this is a question for you, just about what prompted you to compose poems in Norwegian. And she just wonders if you could just kind of reflect a little bit on that, on what happens when poets change the language in which they write.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I fell in love with Norwegian, and I just keep studying it. I'm taking classes at NYU. I'm not fluent, and so part of writing in Norwegian is learning the language. And there's a lot of correspondence between Norwegian and English. English is 7% Norse, so I keep finding English inside of the Norwegian. So yeah, people who are fluent probably can answer this question better than I can. I kind of can't get out of my own way in any language, it seems, because I'm not subtle enough in Norwegian to even try tricks. So I'm basically always just trying to say exactly what I'm trying to say and find a Norwegian, trying to write in Norwegian and then translate to English. But a lot of times it goes, the other way, because I don't know enough Norse to know. Like, I spent half the summer trying to find a Norwegian way of saying freewheeling, which I can't. Norwegian is interesting because, well, for a long time I thought that they didn't even have any swear words, because they all seem so uptight, and it's such a beautiful like social democratic country. So like, what would they even have to swear about? So but it turns out that you can swear in Norwegian. But so I'm such a, you know, I'm still what I think a beginner in the language, and it's totally hubris to be actually writing these poems. But I don't know. I mean, Alice, you had a little French there, and I mean, I'm sure some of the rest of you must have written in or do write in a different language. Does that affect your work? Does anybody else do that? Oh, Alice, you're muted. Alice, you're talking, but you're muted.
Hello?
Now we can hear you.
I wrote one poem in French that's in this book that's spoken by a character named France. And I had to write it, and I can't operate on all the levels I want to. I mean, it's just, I mean, when you write a poem, you're operating on about 16 levels, and I can only operate on about 3 in French. So I haven't done very much except for that one poem, and it's pretty good. And when I read it, something comes out of my guts into my voice because of the way French is in the voice. It's a completely different kind of language, and it touches a different set of emotions in me. So it's fascinating. And I'll probably do it again in another 10 years if I'm alive. What's happening?
I think we're going on to the next question. Thank you. That was really great. Rona.
I think that's almost everything. There's just a comment from Nancy just about she said that listening to your read has inspired her to complete a piece that was stuck. So that's something to take away from here. And she's just asked you what people can do to keep in touch and when our next events will be. And so I've just posted in our chat a link to our website. So we'll post information about our next events on there. So please do keep in touch with us via that website, through it, and we're keen to hear from people who want to be a part of our mailing list or who want to be listed as part of our network. If you want to be listed as a network member, please just get in touch with us.
Rona, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I didn't put it in the Q&A, but it's just, I was, you know, I used to have this feeling that New York school poetry was actually a poetry that registered the apartment space of New York, you know, New York apartments. And I've let that go for a while, but listening to you all today, I'm brought back to it just because I'm realizing how many poems do muse on the space in which you're living. And I'm just wondering how that may or may not have been amplified in this past horrible year or two. If you're writing, this is like a group question, if you felt your writing shift in or out accordingly, you know, according to the lockdowns that you've had to endure, and just what the kind of, you're also known for being urban poets and not being able to walk around and see people and meet people and rub up against each other. You know, it's just, I just wonder if you've noticed a kind of change in your writing accordingly.
No.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, thank you, Alice, I agree.
Okay.
I think it's, I have to say, I think it's sort of a natural environment for all of us to be stuck in our studies.
Yeah.
It was writing.
Yeah, I think what can I hope,
Yes,
I think sometimes when people ask that question, what they're really talking about is the psychology.
Mhm.
I mean, I think we always write within our spaces, but most of the work that we do is not internal. And
Oh, true.
I don't think of it as being inside or interior spaces. I think of it as a negotiation between both the inside and the outside. So I'm not sure if I agree with you on that space. And I also think too that I think a lot of people wrote more during the pandemic, or a lot of people wrote less. It depended on the psychology of how you were feeling about all of this. So I'm not sure that it changed practice other than either in the volume of work or yeah, because I mean, maybe I'm just being wrong here, but that didn't, I mean, I did more reading
Yeah.
during the I mean, I did more reading of other people's work, reading of philosophy and other kinds of things, reading religion, stuff like that, than I did, you know, writing. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know.
I
It
wrote
doesn't make sense.
210 pages.
Yeah, that's a lot of writing.
Yeah. And I can't organize it. I have no idea what it is.
Oh,
I was lucky because I was in Texas during the worst of the pandemic. So I just was, for the first time, I have this house there that I had never really gotten to spend much time in. And because it was really a smarter place to be than New York, I got to be there and, you know, lots of space with my dog. So, and I was supposed to be writing a novel. And so there's nothing like supposed to be doing something else that makes me write poems. So I wrote tons and tons of poems. So the pandemic was great for me. But literally, I just thinking about apartments in New York School and stuff. I do think that there's something, if there is such a thing as the New York School, I think it is a kind of slightly performative way of living in the work. There's a performance of ease. And I think that strikes me as kind of a New York or an urban thing that you know, often you don't even know what, at least currently, you don't even know what people's apartments look like. You just know what they look like when they go out, you know? And so I think that that's a lot of, you know, and so I think that one performs ease whether they're going through difficulty or not, in a way, you know. You just don't, I mean, like we do go into deep, heavy places in our poems and complain too. And that's, but even the complaints always become jokes, you know? And so I don't know, I just find myself thinking about, even though everybody here is female or queer or whatever, you know, there's no men here. I do want to quote Jimmy Schuyler, who always said the best thing about writing poems, it's like the writing the poems part is easy. It's the rest of the time that's the problem.
I agree. But Yasmine's she first met me because she was interested in the poem 101 about 101 St. Mark's Place. And the poem I wrote that's in Mysteries of Small Houses. And many of you have been in that apartment. And that apartment exists somewhere in heaven, exactly as it was when I lived there for 13 years with all of you inside of it. And somehow that is a fact, that sort of thing is a fact of New York School poetry. But it's a very special sort of thing. But you know, it's your apartment. It's your apartment.
I know, and I have the problem as a poet of still living in heaven.
Well, yes. Well, I live in heaven all the time, and that is a problem.
I think I'm still in purgatory. Anyway.
You have a lot of stuff on your wall, Patricia.
I'm in Brooklyn. It may be purgatory. But I also think that the other thing, not everything turns into a joke so much, but I do think that one of the things that's very interesting about all of us as poets, as we've expanded over the years in terms of what we think about it and how we approach things, is, you know, the absolute willingness to take risk. And I think everybody in this particular gathering and most of our peers are people who took risk in terms of the topics that they were writing about, how they approached it, what were the formal gestures, you know, how much and how much we were willing to, to fall
And
on
how
our
we
faces.
lived, though.
How, like that, a lot of, just, I mean, everybody here probably has 210 pages of like stuff you'll never see. So, because it
Don't
didn't
tease us.
work.
Don't say that, Patricia.
Well, I mean, this has been, I don't want it to end. I keep thinking of Frank O'Hara's, I hope there will be more. And that's the greedy part of me. But the more grateful part of me is just wanting to thank you on behalf of Rona and I, and the audience as well, who have expressed gratitude for just your generosity in sharing your poetry and with such enthusiasm and transparency today. I think Anne early on called this a sweet historic event, which we would like to say that it might be. A part of us is sad that it's not in person, but another part of us is glad because it means that you could all be here in the same kind of room for a minute. And I'm not sure that any of us in England or Europe time are going to be able to sleep easily or quickly after such a stimulating reading series. So I'll quote the rest of that poem. Let's advance and change everything and leave these little oases in case the heart gets thirsty en route. This has been kind of an emblem for us of that kind of advancement that we see, Rona and I see, as one of the New York School movement's greatest feat. And so thank you so much on behalf of all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, poets. Take care.
Thanks for making it, everyone.
Thank you for being here.
All your work. Yeah.
It's wonderful. I hope you